Beginning where the last game ended, Assassin's Creed 2 puts you once again in the shoes of Desmond, although this time a different ancestor is connected to him, namely one Ezio Auditore da Firenze. It might seem like an excuse to simply do the same thing again, but this second installment actually brings a few new things to the table. The central premise that the historical war between the Assassins and the Templars still continues today is outright far-fetched. But thankfully you don't have to endure the present-day silliness for long, as the second game focuses on the past. The game teaches you its tricks one by one through its story missions, though you'll be on your own when it comes to finding collectibles and completing side quests once the first chapter is finished. Secondary missions are no longer necessary to progress through the story. Instead, all missions are tied to the story in a natural manner. In fact, besides the treasure chests, even the secrets are introduced through story missions. The initially simple revenge plot unfolds into a full-blown conspiracy, but it feels more involved and is much easier to follow thanks to more cinematics and more relatable characters. Interacting with historical figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Lorenzo de' Medici is definitely a treat, though the protagonist Ezio in particular is disarmingly charming. All aspects of the game have become more complex. Combat has been significantly improved thanks to the addition of a taunt move that triggers an immediate response from your enemies, allowing you to catch them off guard even if the timing for countering is still a bit too demanding. But this time there are more weapons and armor varieties for you to spend your hard-earned cash on, giving you a proper sense of progression. You can also employ mercenaries to fight by your side, or distract guards with courtesans or thieves if you don't feel like fighting. Everything from missions to treasure chests earns you money, but now your hideout doubles as a villa that you can lease for a bit of extra money. The villa can be upgraded by renovating its buildings or decorating the villa itself with paintings. However, the simplicity of the city building is downright insulting. You simply pour money into the villa for it to provide even more money, and are nagged once every 20 minutes to go back and collect the money. And since the game is generous with the incentives anyway, don't be surprised if you end up with more money than you can ever spend, even if you buy everything the game has to offer. Speaking of things to buy, you will now need to visit a doctor if you are injured, though they also sell medicine that you can use at any time. Your armor will also require repairs every now and then from a blacksmith, and extra supplies demand bigger pouches from a tailor. There are even art shops that sell various paintings and maps. Money can't buy you happiness, but it sure as hell can help in this game. Platforming is still a blast, and there are even proper platforming challenges this time. Getting around the city is still a joy, which is good since you'll spend roughly half the time traveling on foot. Stealth now allows you to blend in with crowds rather than just certain groups that wear attire similar to yours, and there is even a notoriety system that encourages careful play. The more notoriety you have, the easier it is for guards to recognize you. You gain notoriety by being detected while killing guards or acting like a menace in general, and you can lose it by removing posters, bribing heralds, and assassinating witnesses. But then again, it's simply best to avoid confrontation when possible. Assassination is still the name of the game, but this time the upgrades you gain throughout the experience are much more significant, ranging from a satisfying double hidden blade to a firearm late in the game, although instead of receiving them automatically after taking out a target, you'll need to find codex pages to unlock them. Thankfully, exploration and treasure hunting make for a surprisingly satisfying endeavor, to the point where you'll end up compulsively gathering secrets just for the fun of it. Renaissance Italy is a joy to explore thanks to the care that went into its virtual counterpart. The landmarks and architecture make playing the game almost as good as a visit to the real thing. However, the world doesn't feel particularly believable due to how tightly packed with collectibles and missions it is. Even if you turn off the legend to certain items on your map, their visible abundance makes it feel less like a real world and more like a playground made specifically for the player. That doesn't mean the game isn't fun or that the additions are needless, but it comes at the expense of complete immersion. Another aspect that can take you out of the experience is the PC port. The good news is that years later, even with Uplay still around, it actually starts up and runs, revealing a beautiful world that is even more lively than that of its predecessors. The bad news is that it's still an inelegant conversion, since depending on your system's mouse settings, you can have mouse acceleration that might require changing your settings in the control panel. Also, icons don't display the keys you're supposed to press, but rather colored icons that can make you fail the rare QuickTime events. General gameplay isn't affected much by this, but it's still a shame these little details weren't given more attention. Assassin's Creed 2 is a much better game than its predecessor, and if you've been holding it off, don't worry, the PC version is currently playable, even if it isn't an ideal one. It doesn't have the most believable world or a plausible premise, but it's still open world gaming at its most addictive.